Hello, I'm now going to talk about Summerland 2020. I love this film. It stars Gemma Arterton, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Penelope Wilton and Tom Courtenay. It's set in the Second World War, but the film opens in 1975 in the same coastal place where the main character, Alice Lamb, she's got a similar temperament to when she's younger. She doesn't seem to like the company of children very much. Perhaps anyone, to be fair. She's keen on writing her manuscript. She's writing a book and someone knocks at the door and she's so annoying as people. I sometimes understand that feeling. I do like people, but everyone wants some peace and quiet, don't they? So she's been interrupted and she's annoyed and she makes some remarks. She's unhappy that she's been interrupted. But we then flash back to the middle of the Second World War, and of course circumstances were very different, and at that point she's a young woman played by Gemma Arterton, and she's living in the same cottage by the sea. Looks an idyllic place. However, we're under threat from Nazi Germany, and it's pretty horrific. And I've seen so many films 78 years ago, the Second World War. During the war, lots of couples and single people were asked to look after children, evacuees from London. It was horrific. The Blitz, with the threat of all the bombs landing, London was not considered a safe place. Many people were evacuated way out into the countryside, and this is the Kent countryside. And interestingly enough, a few days before seeing this film, I was on Facebook chatting with a friend, having a bit of a joke. This friend had posted up pictures of a sandwich, but it led to a whole series of puns about coastal towns in around Kent, which fit in with sandwiches. Meal deal. Really terrible, corny jokes that we never recovered from. Oh, gosh. Sorry about that. I'd been thinking about that area just before, looking at the maps of coastal Kent, and here I was watching a film about Kent and thinking back to how it must have been during the war years. Really, really frightening. There would have been some fear about Nazi Germany invading the coast, so everyone was on high alert. And yet, it was safer to be at the coast. Alice doesn't seem to be very keen on looking after children, and yet there's a knock on the door, and one of the villagers says that she needs to do a bit by looking after a little lad, Frank, played by Lucas Bond. So to start with, Alice isn't very good at looking after children. She's never had to look after children, but she does her best when she packs him off to school in the morning. He goes, "Where is school?" So of course she has to take him there. She is a reluctant guardian, but gradually she warms to him. The circumstances in the story, we start to get some flashbacks about Alice in the 20s when she encountered Vera, played by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, and she falls for her and they start a relationship. And of course, lesbian relationships in the 20s would have been so much more difficult than the late 20th century, never mind. I think LGBTQ rights are better now than they were back in the 70s, 80s and 90s. It's been a gradual improvement in all LGBT rights. Things are getting better. It might not be linear. There seems to be pushback. There seem to be difficulties now. But in the 20s, oh my gosh, it would have been so difficult and it was not something to talk about. But they fell in love and then they split. There's a reason they... No, I better not go into why they split. And so there's this long distance heartache. But then I suppose it's the present moment, the 1940s, during the war. And as Frank settles into this village, Alice and Frank seem to be getting on better. And then someone from the village comes up to break the terrible news that Frank's father has been killed in the war. And Alice has got to tell Frank this news. What an awful thing to have to do. I can totally understand why she does not want to tell him that evening, and she thinks she'll find the right moment the following day. And then, of course, other things happen. Someone in the village, Frank makes a friend, a young girl, and she finds out about Frank's father before he does. And she thinks that Alice is lying. This leads to enormous tension. I won't explain any more. There's more drama ahead. But there is one aspect I would like to talk about, and that's the title, Summerland. Where does that come from? It's like a fable. It's a myth, a legend, a land in the sea, a heavenly place. It's almost like a mirage. There are myths all around the coast. I'm more aware of Atlantis, especially in Abu Dhabi and Cardigan Bay. There's bells that toll in the sea. That's an amazing story, especially when you're growing up. I just love how this story was woven around this concept of a mythical place. Also with this LGBT theme as well. I thought it was a really wonderful story, really plausible. I think it was a fictitious story, but I'm not sure. I'm going to check. I loved it. The acting, it really felt believable. I'd love to watch it again. Lovely story, clever script, brilliant acting. It's highly emotional. You really feel for the characters. That sense of palpable fear from the war. It's going to get a score of 9 out of 10. I really recommend it. And I think we all need to see films from recent history to see how difficult life was in living memory for some people. All my grandparents have sadly died, but they all lived through the war. Gradually, as time moves on, the war and all the stories from it will fade. We really need historical dramas from the war to help us realise how lucky we are to live in a time of comparative peace, how important peace is and how important attempting to empathise with people, to be compassionate about other human beings. Alright, thanks for watching. I'd love to know your thoughts if you've seen this film. See you again soon. Consider subscribing. Consider ringing that notification bell and press the like if you liked it, or press the dislike if you disliked it. As Miles Dyer says, it's all engagement. So thank you. Bye for now. My favourite Gemma Arterton story. Wow, that plane is so loud.